Okay. Hi, Skyler. About your experience going through the mental training entrepreneur program. But before we get into sort of like your before and after and your experience going through it and your decision-making process and all the things that people want to know as they're making their decision, tell us a little bit about you and where we can learn more about you and what you're doing these days.
Yeah, so I am in Boston, Massachusetts now. I originally am from Kansas City. I started this program actually while I lived in Kansas City and made the move about 2 months into the program. So that was definitely a challenge, but I'm so glad that I had the community that I did with the program. So I am now I own my own business called Train My Mental Game. So trainmymentalgame.com. My outreach is mainly to high school athletes. I am a former volleyball player, so that's who I'm focusing on for the most part right now, but eventually want to get into other sports as well. But really just training the mentality of high school athletes going into college and taking it the step further from high school.
And so you're a collegiate volleyball player. So how did your interest in mental training sort of stem from that?
So Lindsay and I actually have a great story about, she was actually the one that introduced me to mental training while I played volleyball at UMKC.
Love that.
so yeah, my coach had you come in the summer, and we did your program throughout our season. During that season, we ended up winning 16 games in a row. So it was something that I was in a really tough part in my athletic career as well. So it was perfect timing for me. Mental training helped develop my career as a volleyball player, and I still use a lot of those tools today, just in life and in work. Mm-hmm. So that's how I started in my interest in mental training. I then went on to go travel after school, lived in Sydney, Australia for a year. After that, and came back and just really missed the sports world. Knew I wanted to get back into it. I come from a coach's family, so I have always been around sports, and it's just something that I know that I have always wanted to stay in, but I didn't necessarily want to be a college coach that had to do all the recruiting and all that stuff. So it was something that I knew I could invest in myself because it was something that I loved and will continue to love throughout the rest of my life.
So talk a little bit about your transformation. Where were you when you started the program versus where you are now? What was your trajectory through that?
I think as an entrepreneur, obviously I've grown so much. I came in knowing very little about marketing, sales, anything like that. I don't have any background in that. I graduated with a health sciences degree in public policy. So that was something that I have grown in tremendously, making cold calls now and going out and selling myself to people, selling mental training. So I think that's the biggest part of my growth, along with as well just learning the basic tools in mental training. Like I said, I've practiced them before as an athlete, but when you really dive into it and start teaching it, obviously you learn so much more. And just having the confidence in myself to be able to start my own business and have that belief in myself and chase after my own dreams rather than work for somebody else's dreams.
Yeah, that's so cool. Well, you've grown so much through our time together, and I'm so excited to see. I know it was a little bit of a challenge to switch cities, but with your collegiate volleyball background, I know you're busy making all of those connections, and will build your business wherever you are. And you still have your connections in your hometown with being able to do virtual and all that. So tell me a little bit about, like, obviously we talk about the three pillars, right? We talk about the mental training. You already touched on all those. You talk about the mental training, like how to actually work with someone, which you, again, had that experience as an athlete, but then turning it into working with an actual other person. And then we have the business marketing and strategy and even the technology. And then we have the mindset of being an entrepreneur. Can you just kind of touch on each one of those and like what you got in the program in those three pillars? Maybe one that was kind of like the most transformational for you, and maybe hit on the others as well.
So like I mentioned, the most transformational was definitely the marketing technology. I'm not good with technology at all. So it was really helpful to have your input, the workbooks that you'd put together for us, the sales scripts, the marketing booklet that you put together for us to follow, really helped me a lot in just kind of organizing my thoughts and knowing what steps to take. And then also just having people in the group that were good at that stuff. So we had Katie, who is in her thing was marketing, and she gave us a lot of insight. So it was nice to have other people's viewpoints, and just them asking the questions that I wouldn't have even known to ask in the first place.
Right.
And then as far as the other pillars go, the mental training side, just having the availability of your coursework, to go through that ourselves and certify ourselves in that, and then just being able to go back and forth to that and putting it into our own practices, was very helpful. And then
did you use the parent PowerPoint that we recently?
I'm planning to. Yes.
Cool.
So, okay. But yeah, so that'll be really helpful.
Yeah,
and that's what I mean. I know how to make a basic PowerPoint, but just seeing all the extra little things of selling within that, making sure there's follow-up things that you're doing to keep those people knowing what's going on, and sending out newsletters to them, things like that. Things that you wouldn't think about, because you expect everyone to believe you and trust you down. Right away. So,
yeah, good. Okay, so the last one, the mindset of being an entrepreneur, and the fear and the confidence and all that stuff. I mean, I've seen you grown. I know how much you've grown, but other people are just seeing you right now. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. I think a big thing was doing the mental training myself throughout this, and remembering to slow down a little bit, plan out my goals, write down things, journal every now and then, and do meditation practices on my own. That's something that really helped me through just getting the confidence to go out there and do what I'm doing now. And really just, I mean, like I said, I came to a new city and didn't know anyone. And I've already made a connection here that he's a club coach here that's similar to my age, and he's already connected me with multiple other people, multiple other college coaches. So it's just amazing, like one little outreach, how much you can grow from one outreach. And I would have never had the confidence beforehand to just go up to a complete stranger and ask them to introduce me to their volleyball friends. And
so how does it feel now that, I mean, one of the big steps we took was not saying you're going to be doing this at some time in the future, but like, I am
right.
mental training coach. I am an entrepreneur. Tell me about what that was like in the beginning.
Yeah. It's scary, but I think also my traveling beforehand helped me a lot. And one of the quotes that I kind of live off of is, life is either a daring adventure or nothing at all.
Yeah.
And it's really helped me to just go for it, and to have the support of my family and friends as well. And that's something that definitely, if you do this program, you lean on that and need that, going through the baby stages of everything. So.
Yeah. Okay. So you brought up two really good things. One is the decision-making process, which I want to talk about in the beginning or in a second, because you were kind of at an interesting stage. I think you were even thinking about going back to school, or like you were at that stage where it was like, what do I do with my life? And I want to talk about that. But I also want to talk a little bit before we get to that about the community in the program, right? I mean, we had 8 people this last cohort, and you guys were all so close and so supportive of each other, and like in the Facebook group, and like, I mean, obviously I was engaged as well, but you guys were just like each other's cheerleaders, and like talk about how important that was, because that was pretty cool to be a part of from my perspective.
Yeah. I mean, you get the opportunity to learn from the things that they already know, but also just to have that support there is so important, to have that community and getting other people's feedback. I know pretty much everyone in the group put up their website, their like version 1 of their website, and got feedback, and people were honest about it and real about it, and weren't afraid to just tell them or give their opinion. And I think that also just, having those cheerleaders as well, people to kind of lean on that are going through the same thing as you. So,
really okay. So, talk a little bit about your decision-making process. One, like, what would you tell yourself if you were going through it again? I think that's always sort of like a good litmus test for anything. And then also just your self-talk and your decision, going through that. I mean, there's always the, like, I can't afford it, or it's not the right time, or should I do it later? Or what if it doesn't work? And all that kind of like fear language. So talk to us a little bit about how you went through that, and also what you would tell yourself going through that again.
Yeah. So like I said, I was coming back from traveling, obviously just got out of school, didn't have a lot of money. But yeah, like you said, I was planning on going back to school. I kind of think it's a weird sort of fate thing of how I got into this. Was looking at going back to school, didn't get into my top choice, the sports psychology. And then was like, okay, I'll take a year off and see where it takes me. Came back and joined your Facebook group, the mental training coaches group. And then you posted about this opportunity, and I went back and forth on it a lot. And then I think I contacted you on like the last day that we could. And I like sent in the video the day before was like the deadline.
Yeah.
And you contacted me right away. And I also had just finished up a camp. And I was kind of told a club mom about what I was thinking about doing. And she was like, oh my gosh, I would totally hire you. Like, that's exactly what my daughter needs. So yeah, it was more a weird like fate thing for me. But also there are, of course, some things I wish I would have thought about beforehand, and prepared myself for a little bit more, which is the expenses that come along with building your website, having the subscriptions to all that stuff. So making sure that you're aware of that. And then also just giving myself those 6 months to work a little bit more on what I was doing while I had the support there, because I didn't have that confidence at the beginning. I wasn't as hard at work as I am now in the last 3-4 months. Yeah. So just starting out a little bit earlier, I think you just have to be able to jump right into it, and really take advantage of those 6 months that you have. Yeah.
Yeah. Totally. So obviously, I'm, my purpose of talking to people is making sure that the program is right for them. That's the right fit. So how did you know, and weighing all those other things, how did you ultimately come to the conclusion that you felt like this was the right fit for you?
I mean, obviously, I think the relationship that you build with your clients is a big thing, and knowing that support was going to be there, and it was very helpful
to be there, even though the program's over. You know that.
Yeah, and I mean that helped as well. Just having the coursework that I did with you in college, and trusting you in that as well. And then also just I was at a point in my life where I was like, okay, it's either now or 5 years down the road, I'm going to regret it. And I think everyone always has that point in their life, whether it's you're starting a family or you're starting your career, or your kids are going off to college and you don't have anything, like, now what are you going to do? So yeah, I was just really focusing on investing in myself. And like I said before, it's like, I'd rather chase my own dreams than have to work for somebody else's.
Yeah. Okay, cool. And then finally, what has starting this business really meant for you personally, and even in your life, but just as a young woman, you're kind of starting off your career and telling people you're an entrepreneur, like how do you walk through the world differently, I guess, after going through this?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of times, like, when I tell people, they're like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. I could never do what you're doing. And I probably would have been one of those people at one point in time. So it's very rewarding to have something that you can call your own. And just, like I said, like, I have some great support, and they're always cheering me on and have the belief in me to make it to where I want to be. So that's helpful, and just having the community that comes along with it as well is something that I'm thankful that is there now and will continue to be there.
I'm so excited to watch your progress in the next, I don't know, even like 6 months. I feel like you're about to blow up, but what are you most excited about?
I'm most excited about getting back with athletes. It has been too long since I've worked with athletes. So definitely just not having the time, because you never have the time, but making the time to do what I love to do. I'm working a 8 to 5 job right now, but I also know that on the weekends, that's when athletes work as well. So there's the opportunity on the weekends to work with athletes, especially like I'm working with club teams. So they have their practice on the weekends, and I'm able to take the time to do that.
Yeah, so. Cool. All right. Tell us again what your website is.
trainmymentalgame.com.
Perfect. Okay. Thanks so much, Skyler. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Lindsay.
Okay. Bye.